This is Sai Kumar Kortewada. In this video, we will learn what is event binding in Angular. To understand more about bindings and the different types of bindings, I recommend you to watch my previous videos for better understanding. Let's try to understand what is event binding. Let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. If you see here, I have created a project called Demo1. So this is created by using Angular CLI, and it has been created a component called as app component, which is my default component in my application. So let's try it out in this particular app component itself. Let me go to HTML. So what is event binding? Event binding is a binding between our view and the controller. Whenever we do some action on the view, then that should be intimated to our controller. That is called as a event binding. How to achieve event binding in Angular? Let's see. For example, when I click a button, that button need to trigger some method and do some functionality. So let me create a button, emit trigger or emit event, and let me create a method in my TS button click. This is my method which need to be triggered when I click that particular button. So let me create a variable label equal to Sai. Whenever I click this button, then what's my functionality? It has to change my label to Kumar. Let me save this. Now, how to trigger this particular event by using our button? So there is a method called as click. That is nothing but an event. So click is equal to, it will emit the button click method. So whenever I click this particular button, it has to emit this button click. Let me save this and run the application. ng serve, hit enter. To see the change of that particular variable, what I can do is I can use interpolation, and let me hit label, and here let me write a paragraph. Inside the paragraph, let me write this label. Save this. Whenever I click this button, then my label should be changed into Kumar. Initially, it will be Sai. So let's see that output. It has been compiled successfully. Let me go to the browser and reload the application. If you see here, we are getting a button, emit event, and the name Sai. When I click this particular button, this Sai will be changed to Kumar. Let me hit this. Yeah, it has been changed to Kumar. So this is something called as event binding. We are sending the data from our HTML or view to the controller. That is called as an event. So how we can achieve an event emitting in Angular? By using a parenthesis and binding this particular click event inside this. This is one way of emitting our events. And even there is an other approach to emit the event, that is nothing but a canonical form of our events. So let me copy the same button, and here let me change this as canonical. So this canonical form is nothing but it's a type change of syntax. So on hyphen, and let me change this method as canonical event. Let me copy this canonical event, go to component.ts, and let me create the method. In this method, I want to change that label value to skk. So let me save this and let me save this. So now when the user clicks on this canonical event, then my label name should be skk. Let me go to the browser, click on emit event. This is an Angular way of event emission, and this is a canonical way of event emission. Let me click on this canonical event. So skk. So what's happening here is we can use two types of syntax for our event binding. One is by using parenthesis, and one more thing is by using on-click event. That is by using a canonical form. So till now we have observed event emitting from a button. Let me see some other events. Let me create one input element and placeholder as event emission on the value change. Something like this placeholder. Let me save this. It has created an input field. Let me use break statement. Save this. Now it came into the next line. So here what I want to do is whenever the user types here, I want to capture that particular event, and I have to change the value. Let me use input is an event, and on change input. This is my method. Let me copy this method, go to the TS file, and let me create the method. So here I can use this dot label equal to input value change. So there is something called as input value change. So whenever I change that particular input, then my label will be changed. So let me go back and see here, emit event, emitted, canonical event, SKK. But when I start typing here, my label will be changing. You can see here, input value change. Whenever I typed or whenever I inserted some value in my input field, then the event is getting triggered. Now our intention is whenever I pass some value from this input, that input value should be displayed in this label. So let me use one more input field with a break statement. I'll give dual break and input. So here what I want to do is capture the event of the input. So what I want to do, I want to capture the event of that particular input and I want to display inside the label. Here we are hard coding this label, right? Instead, whatever the user types here, I want to capture it and I want to display in the label. So what I can do is there is a predefined parameter called as $event. So you can pass this $event and you can capture that particular event value and assign the value. So for example, I'm passing $event and here let me capture that event and it is a type of any. So what I can do is instead of hard coding the value, I can say event.target.value. So it is something like document.getElement by ID of some ID dot value, same like the document.getElement by ID. Instead, we are passing direct the event. Let me save this and let me save this. If you see here, we have something called as on input change. Let me save this. And here also we are using the same. So instead, what I will do is here, what I want to do is whenever I enter something on this input, that input value should be replaced in this label. So let me create one input and let me use change label on input. This is my method. Let me create this method in my TS. And how to pass the value of this particular input field. There is a predefined event called as $event. We can be passing for every event of our Angular, and this event will let you know what are the values which we are using and what is the element which has been changed. So let me use that parameter event any. So now this dot label equal to event dot target dot value. So now let me save this and save this. So go back here, you can see that capture the event. So that is nothing but on changing this particular value inside the input field, this value should be changed. Let me type something, you can see here. So it is getting changed in the below one. So it is a type of get element by ID in JavaScript and we are changing the value. So this is one way to change the value of the input field or any element of the HTML. So now let me create one div and with a style of width 100 pixel, height 200 pixel, or let me give 100 pixel. So this is my one div and let me create one more div with a style of width 50 pixel and height 50 pixel. That means we are creating two boxes, one inside the other. And let me give border 1 pixel solid black. And in the same way, let me pass this border and paste here. Save this. So if you see here, we got a two boxes. Let me give margin and save this. Yeah. Now we got two boxes, one inside the other. Let me try to emit some event from these two boxes. So let me use a click event, click equal to outer box emitter. So we have created our outer box emitter. So let me copy this and go to the TS file. Let me pass that outer box emitter. And I have created a method. I have created an outer box event. So let me create one more event for inner box. So let me hit enter and let me use click equal to inner box emitter. This is my one of the inner box emitter, and let me copy this and go to the TS file and paste here. Let me create this method, save this and save this. So whenever I click the inner box emitter, this should be called, and whenever I click on the outer box emitter, the remaining should be called. So what I want to do is whenever I click on the inner box or the outer box, I want to change the label. Label is equal to outer box emitted, and let me write the console.log outer box. So save this and let me copy the same logic and paste in the inner box emitter. So here I'll change it to inner box emitted and inner box in the console. Let me save this and go back. Here we have two boxes. Let me inspect this. And when the user clicks on the outer box, emitter should be called. Let me click here. So if you see here, there is an outer box and the label has been changed to outer box emitted. But now there is a problem with inner box. Let me click on the inner box. If I click on the inner box, first inner box emitter has been called and then an outer box emitter is called. Why it is behaving? This concept in JavaScript is called as event bubbling. That means after the completion of the event inside the particular div, will be calling the other emitters for the parent. For example, in this case, we have a child box and a parent box and both have the events. When I click on the parent box, only parent event will be emitted. Whereas when I click on the child box, it will be emitting its own emitter as well as it will be emitting the parent element because it is nested. So this is a problem which we have encountered. How to resolve this? Go back. Let me create the same type of box below and let me give some margin, top 10 pixels. So this is nothing but avoiding event bubbling. So let me save this. Here I have used the same methods, that is outer box emitter, inner box emitter. Let me format it. And if you see here, we have used outer box emitter and inner box emitter. Same mechanism, but how to avoid this bubbling? So what I will do is, there is a method called as stop propagation on the event. For example, I want to stop propagating to the parent one. So what I can do, event dot stop propagation. This is a method over the event. So what it will do is, this will stop your event bubbling. That means it will not allow you to trigger the parent emitters. Let me save this, go back. And if you see here, let me click on the inner box. When I click on the inner box has been triggered, outer box has been triggered. There is a event bubbling happening in this particular box. Whereas, let me clear this and let me try to click on the avoiding event bubbling box. So let me click on the outer box. You got outer box. Let me clear this and let me click on the inner box. It is getting only inner box. So what we understood from here, whenever you want to avoid the event bubbling, then we can use stop propagation method on the $event, which is given by Angular. So this is one way to avoid our event bubbling. When to write stop propagation? Whenever you have a nested components or nested elements which are having events on both parent as well as the nested one, then you have to use stop propagation method over the $event. So this is how we can avoid our event bubbling. And there is something called as modifiers. So let's understand what is modifiers. So let me use input, and inside the input tag, I have something called as key up. There is an event called as key up, and I want to call a method called as key up emitter. There is a method called as key up emitter. Let me copy this and go to the component, place here. Now, whenever the user clicks on this particular key up, then that key up emitter will be called. Let me use console.log of inside the key up, save this and save this. So now what happens? Whenever the user enters something on the keyboard, then this emitter will be triggered. So here we are seeing a keyboard events. Let me go back to the browser and let me type it. H. I didn't leave the key, but now I am trying to leave the key. Whenever I leave the key, it is like inside the key up. So that means whenever you want to use key up, key down, key press, we can use that particular events also. This click event is something related to mouse events, and key up, key down are related to keyboard events. So what I want to do is, I am calling key up emitter. That is superb fine. But I have an input where I want to emit this key up emitter only when I hit enter. That means when I hit the enter key. So what we can do, there is a modifier called as dot enter. So this is a modifier. Until we click on the enter key, this key up emitter will never be called. So let me go back, and here what I want to do is, I want to update my label with key up event. Let me save this and save this. Let's get a clarity by using a placeholder key up with enter. This is my placeholder. Let me save this and go back. If you see here, key up with enter. So what I will do is, I'll go on typing this, but if you see the label, that is not has been updated. What I will do is, I'll hit enter. So when I click enter, inside the enter key up, and the key up event has been triggered. So this is how you can specifically use enter keyword for getting the values. When to use this enter keyword? Normally, whenever we are using a search field, whenever you want to do some API call on clicking and enter, then we can use this type of events. So these are the few types of events in Angular, and we also have different types of events, but all would be similar. Write the event name, write the method name. Whenever that event occurs, that method will be called. So what we saw mouse events like click, on click, canonical form, as well as input event and input event with dollar event. That means we are passing the particular input fields event values, and we also saw what is event bubbling and how to avoid the event bubbling, what are key up, key down, key enter. So these are the different types of bindings which we have saw in this session. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.